Welcome, party people, once again to the Kraken Cast. Kraken Cast is our podcast where we talk with Twitch streamers about everything Twitch, about gaming, about life, and more. Today, we are going to be joined by Melzii. Melzii is a chill goth, a Twitch partner, a variety streamer, and so much more. We're going to talk metal, we're going to talk Elder Scrolls, and we're just going to talk gaming and see where the conversation takes us. If you can take a moment yourself, click that red button that says subscribe, turn it gray. It would help the podcast out a lot. And don't forget to ring that bell. Thank you for coming to the Kraken Cast here, Melzii.
Very excited.
Very excited to have you here. Usually we start off with a few just kind of like getting to know you questions. How would you describe your style? Obviously you use the term chill goth. So can you tell us a little more about that?
So chill goth is just kind of happened. I don't really know how it became a thing. But chill goth, it's just sort of like an overall attitude or mindset that we kind of have on the channel. It's just about being yourself and about accepting yourself and where you are at in your journey. Just kind of being like expressing yourself however that feels comfortable, but then, you know, just kind of being chill with that. So for me, that manifests as chill goth. I've always kind of like dressed like this, and but I have like a very kind of like bubbly personality, so it just kind of became like a whole vibe, and that's just what we do.
And what made you make the decision to get into streaming?
It was on my birthday, actually. It was my very first stream. I started streaming, actually, Blast Beast, my husband, was the one that suggested that I stream. I never even thought that that would be a thing for me. Like, I'm kind of a hermit type. Like I've always been very camera shy, and like right now, don't tell anyone, but I'm like really nervous. It's like the hermit thing where I'm introverted, but I really enjoy interaction in a safe space for myself. Face-to-face contact is like really overwhelming for me a lot of times, and like especially in a room with more than a few people. Like, if all of you people were, like, here in the room right now, I would be freaking out in the corner. But I've always, like, been really artistically inclined. Like, I really enjoy making art. I really enjoy all that kind of stuff. So Blast Beast actually kind of talked me into it and said, like, you should just try it. It might be good for you. It might be, like, a fun way to practice interaction. If I stop interacting with people, like, it gets worse. And like my crowd anxiety just gets like horrible. So it's like actually really good. And it turned out to be really good practice. And like it turned out to be a really safe place for me to actually interact with people and be able to be myself and feel safe in a space that I've created, and that folks are able to hang out with me, but I don't have like the crippling anxiety that doesn't allow me to be myself.
There's a lot of things you talked about there that I'm going to like want to get into. We're going to stick with that kind of anxiety and being able to produce content and interact with people with less of the anxiety you have in person. Because the big kind of focus of my channel, of the podcast and stuff here, is kind of awareness. I have ADHD. Podcasting and streaming has been a way for me to also not mask and just be myself and be who I am. So it's really kind of cool to hear that it's similar for you with your anxiety, that you're able to use streaming as a way to work through your anxiety, still interact, produce things creatively, and not be like held back by the anxiety portion that might be there if you were like in front of a room, like you said, of 120 odd people talking about the same stuff.
Yeah, totally. That's one of the things that actually drove me to your content, not to like turn it around on you, but like it was just something that I saw in, you know, it says that your ADHD is your superpower and your kryptonite, and I like totally identified with that, and really like that really vibed with me. Like it really resonated with me. And I think we do share that kind of like mindset with streaming, and I think that's really cool for sure.
Yeah, and it's really great because I've met a lot of people either who just watch content or make content who are neurodivergent as well, whether that be anxiety, autism, ADHD. So I think it's really great for the platform for that. And kind of before we kind of move more into the games you play, the content you create, I do want to go back. Like you mentioned that, you know, your partner Blast Beast is who got you kind of into streaming. I believe, not to throw them under the bus because they're not who I'm interviewing, they're a metal drummer, right?
He is a metal drummer.
So you have a lot of kind of like creativity coming there from everybody in the household. I'm curious if you feel music plays any part in how you create. I know you're not creating music per se, you're creating gaming content, but I'm curious if your background on being around music has any kind of influence in the content you create?
I mean, I would say music, especially like metal, has been such a part of my life for so long, and it's like really, it's been like my best friend in a lot of ways through a lot of different things. And so I feel like I'm just like heavily imbued by music and metal music specifically. So I think like everything I create is sort of influenced by that aesthetic and that mindset, because that is something that so deeply a part of me. So I would be hard, I would be lying if I said that that isn't like part of my content. And yeah, like some of the emotes that I drew, like I drew emotes that are like, you know, a rock on hand, you know, like a metal horns, and like, you know, I have a lot of like fire themes, and like, you know, I have a lot of like metal themes on my channel. And so I think that is definitely like heavily inspired, you know, by this type of music that has been so important to me and has gotten me through so many things in my life. Basically, yes, I think that's the answer to the question, is that like it's just such a part of me at this point that like it just kind of like, you are what you eat. And I think that that applies to media as well. Like the media you consume, I think has a big influence, like subconsciously and otherwise, on the content that you create. And so I think metal is absolutely a part of that.
And one of the reasons I asked that also is because I know it's had a huge influence on the content I create. I'm not playing a lot of metal music. I don't have it like, but it influences me because I can remember being wee baby Loctavian, getting taken by my dad to my first big metal concert, which was Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
So what you need to know about metal shows, if you haven't been to metal shows, it doesn't matter the scope of the metal show. It doesn't matter if it's like a smaller band starting out in metal or a huge band. There is a theatrical element to the presentation of metal music. It might be how they perform. It might be how the crowd reacts, or how they react with the crowd. It might be a giant 20-foot tall freaking mummy shooting lasers on the stage, as it is with Maiden. But there's such a theatrical element to a lot of metal. The way they are able to present what they are about, what their story is about, what they're trying to convey, to me was a huge inspiration to my own content, because like you said, you are what you eat is a good way to phrase that. So
Definitely.
Always was like, I want to come across as theatrically as possible, because even if I'm not doing metal, I want people to know what I'm about. And I think metal conveys that in a way that a lot of other music types don't.
That is a good point, is that like metal is very theatrical and it is very tied into aesthetics. And I think that is something that's always drawn me to it. Like album covers always look cool, you know, stuff like that. And like, yeah, metal shows like have fire and like theatrics and giant mummies, like you said. And like, it's just really like, it's very theatrical, and it's very much it's very like chill goth in the essence that it's like very much itself unapologetically. So
obviously when people start out streaming, we all start from different levels. Some people start, you know, they don't let their friends or their family know, they don't bring in their community. Some people like myself have a community that they brought in with them. Just kind of looking at Twitch tracker, looking at analytics, you kind of started off like not with like a rumble, but with a bang. You had a lot of follows instantly. You had a lot of viewership kind of right off the get-go. I'm just curious what community like brought you in and like really kind of helped you start off with that bang.
Okay, so that's a great story. So I was maybe about 4 hours into my first stream. It was my birthday, and I had maybe like 3 or 4 viewers or something like that. And I was just like moseying around in Skyrim trying to get to Whiterun and kept getting distracted and all these things. But anyways, so I'm just gaming along, and then all of a sudden my chat is going like crazy fast, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I thought I got botted like crazy. I actually panicked. I freaked out. I was like, what is happening? I like stopped. I didn't know what was going on. And I realized that I had been graced by the amazing presence of Gus Johnson, had actually raided me with like 1,300 people, or like an insane amount of people. So I like had no idea what was going on. And like actually panicked, but and I was like, you guys are all bots, what's going on? And then they were like, we're not bots, and they were actually really nice to me, and they were really cool, and it was my birthday, and so they were being like really awesome and really nice and super supportive, and like his community is really, really cool.
Yeah, you know what? This person seems oh guys, again, feel the need to preface this. I know where a lot of my audience comes from, Reddit. And I tell you what, a lot of guys on Reddit, we're going to go raid a girl. Don't be a fucking weirdo, all right? Everyone's usually chill over here. Don't go be fucking weird. This person, it says first stream, and it's her birthday. Could be a lie. The jaded part of me says not a lie. Go be chill as hell. Hit her with some followers. She has 5 followers, dude. She has 5 followers. Go hit her with some followers. Just go be chill. Just do nothing but positive comments. Compliment her gameplay and shit. Here we go. It's Melzii.
Fantastic creator. It's also really great when bigger creators are willing to like take a chance on newer creators. So it's really cool that you had that. Something you mentioned there, though, that I want to talk about is people always mention luck. It doesn't matter the level of success, and there is a luck involved. Like you can't make Gus Johnson give you a raid, right? You can't decide when someone's going to raid you and someone's going to follow you. All you can do is work on your own content. But I do like to speak to luck a little bit, because luck is about being able to seize opportunities. So yes, the raid itself, no control over, but what people can do, and what I think you did innately well, being it's your first stream, it's your birthday stream, you're doing this for your first time. It's such an amazing feat, I think, and not to like put all the credit to Gus Johnson, because a lot of being able to retain people that have them come back is, I always say, make sure your content is ready. So when you do get those raids, when you do get those opportunities, you're able to like seize the day and be able to retain some of those people, which is something you were able to innately do with your personality, with the content you were making from day one, which I think is really amazing as well.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a good point, is that like I kind of didn't say this, but like prior to actually starting my first stream, I had spent maybe like 2 months like setting up my stuff and like making channel art and like drawing my interface that I usually use, and like drawing emotes and setting up everything and making sure that I had like equipment that worked, and setting up my green screen and making a green screen and it's like setting up lights. So I did like, I think I was kind of ready for that moment to happen, and able to seize that moment because I had prepared in advance for that. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good point too, is that like having an art background and having like a background in working in like film and stuff, I have like some background skills that I've put towards this. And so I was sort of like, it was my first stream, but like I had prepared in advance for that, so.
Yeah. And see, that's also really, I think, a really good piece of advice. And if you're already streaming and you don't have all that stuff, it's still a really good piece of advice, because at the end of the day, there are studies that show people's attention spans are about 7 seconds. That means if someone raids in, or they manage to click your channel, they go through the ads and they're still there after the ads, you have such a limited amount of time for them to be ensnared and stay. And that's going to come from not luck. That's going to come from you. Like you said, you have your art background. So, working on your moats, your overlays, working on your presentation. And as time goes on, continuing to like evolve that and kind of mold into where your brand's going to go, because our brands are kind of ever changing. And the reason I kind of bring up brand is kind of the next thing is obviously having such a quick start, having that jump start, that wonderful Gus Johnson start, that art background coming in, you've still, like you said, managed to grow. And I'm just curious, now that it's been about, let's see, you started at the beginning of the year, so about 9 months in, what are your goals? Obviously you might have had initial goals with streaming that were blown out of the water by the initial rate, but what are your goals now as a streamer?
I really want to start making more art content, and that's something that I've really, honestly, at this point, really put off, because I get really, it's such like a personal thing making art, and also digital art is something that's new to me, but I really want to like, there's still emotes that I'm working on for my channel, and I really want to stream that process, and I'd really like to do more art streams and just kind of branch out my content in that way more. I just sort of started gaming as like a way, I mean, I love gaming obviously, but I just want to also branch out into things that I personally am more like other skills that I have and other skills that I really want to nurture and personally work on, because I think having time for doing those things outside of streaming, since streaming is like kind of all consuming, it's kind of hard to have time for that kind of stuff if you don't make time and like stream it. And so, and I really like to, so I think just art content, creating more art content, or any art content for that matter. And just kind of continuing to build like community content, like I have like a pretty big focus on the Discord community that we've built, and we've been just kind of building that and adding more features and doing more like Discord stuff for like community focus. Yeah, that's mostly my goals. Is just the main thing would be art content for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, this would be like kind of a really nice segue, especially with given your art background and things. And I do want to talk more about Discord content creation outside of Twitch and community, and we'll get to those shortly. But before we do, I'm curious because there's a couple of questions I always like to ask people, such as what are your inspirations? So Ludwig, who's a big creator on the platform, put out a video a while ago called "So You Want to Be a Big Streamer," kind of giving advice. And one of the things that he said there is write down 3 to 5 inspirations, and they're not people you're going to copy, but people who do things that inspire you when it comes to content creating. And he felt that was very important, and I do as well. So I'm curious if you have any inspirations and who those inspirations are. And they don't have to be Twitch creators; they can be creators anywhere really to inspire you.
Oh man, there's so many. I have a really hard time picking like favorites or there's just so many incredible creators in the world. I mean, I think like a lot of like as far as art, there's so I mean, I studied art and so art history and all that. Like I'm really inspired by like architecture and like classic painting, and also just like there's so many amazing creators as far as streamers on Twitch, like yourself included, and other creators that have just been absolutely incredible inspirations for me. And yeah, so sorry, I'm really bad at like off the top of my head.
No, it's perfectly okay.
Yeah. There's just so many. Like there's so many.
That's fair. But it's good. It's always good to have inspirations. Obviously, asking off the top of the head's a little bit more difficult than just prepping for that. So the other question I wanted to ask before we kind of got into community growth and content and things like that was how you deal with growth. Obviously, you had your initial, like we already talked about the initial growth, the day one, the birthday stream, but how do you deal with the ups and downs? Because any content creator knows that some days are going to be super well received. Sometimes you'll have a week where the numbers are lower. Sometimes you're going to pick a game that's just not going to, your ride or dies are going to be there, but the people who like a different type of content might not be there for that week. I'm just curious how you deal with the ups and downs, the highs, the lows, and the plateaus of that.
Yeah. And I think like that, I think that can be maybe not frustrating, but like, I think it's really easy to take that kind of stuff personally. As a creator, you're kind of like, what did I do wrong? But then you have to think about, I have to remind myself, and I'm sure a lot of other creators do this too, that like, it's not you, probably. It's like, and honestly, I have to remind myself that I am so grateful that anyone is watching my content at any given moment, no matter what. Like, it's, the fact that anyone is there, I'm so grateful that like they could be literally anywhere on the entire internet and they chose to be on my channel. Like I can't even fathom the fact that like that's just honestly just fills me with gratitude. So that's really one of my biggest grounding things, is that I remind myself like there's a huge internet out there, and the fact that anyone chose to be on my channel, and the fact that you do have ride or dies, like though that's just, that kind of keeps me going personally. But yeah, I mean, that's not to say that I don't have moments where I'm just like, what did I do wrong? Like that you just take it personally and you think like you did something different, or you're just kind of like overthinking your own content, or thinking that maybe you messed up or something. But I think for me, like things like yoga and meditation and stuff like that have like really helped me like keep my mental health at leveled throughout all of it, and those kind of things just help ground me in the fact that like I am so honored and grateful to even like have any sort of like folks that want to hang out at my channel. But But I mean, other than that, I just like to keep my content as fresh as possible. Like anytime I get excited about new things that I want to add, or even if it's just like a new emote or like a new screen, or like, you know, you add a little bell or whistle here or there, and it's always like that stuff is fun for me, and I'm sure a lot of other creators as well, to just like when you add those kind of things, or you find a new thing that you want to do, like you find a thing that you like when you shout somebody out, it like plays a clip of theirs, or like you decide to add a new like screen or a transition or something like that, and like those things I think really keep it fresh for your viewers. And I think so whenever I feel like I'm kind of like I had a bad day, or like I feel like, oh, that stream kind of like sucked, you know, I think that's moments where I ultimately it turns into inspiration to just create better, or not better, but create like newer and fresher like to keep the content new for myself. Like, am I bored with my own content? Do I need to, you know, like, do I need to watch one of my streams and be like, what is it that's missing? Or like, am I interested? Is this engaging for me, you know? And so yeah, I think ultimately it just kind of like it turns into how can I keep the content fresh.
Right. I think you actually hit on two really important things there. One of them that I like that you said is, one, you're taking care of your mental health, whether it be like meditation, yoga, things like that, but also remembering what you do have. Because I think it's easy to go, I'm used to streaming to 150, I'm going to throw a random number out there, 150 people. And when I do this other game, now it's 70 people. And instead, a lot of people go, ooh, I lost half my viewership. What's going on when I go to this new game? I can't do this new game, versus going, you know, it's okay for me to do this other content. I'm not abandoning the type of content I've made, but I'm doing something different. And I still have 75 ride or dies. I still have 75 people who are here no matter what. And I think the fact that your viewpoint is a really healthy viewpoint. And that's kind of something I wanted to bring up and double stress to people, is being aware of what you do have, because it can also be very frustrating. And I know this from experience as a viewer. If you're watching a creator, they go into a new game, you're there with them in the new game, and you understand why they're down. But if they start being super negative about it, it becomes harder to kind of stick around. You also feel less valued as a viewer in that kind of situation. So it's really good to have the viewpoint you have. So
yeah, that's a really good point, is that like as a viewer, you know, I think it does totally devalue you as a viewer if you're watching and the creator is like, no, you know, being negative about it. But and honestly, I just think like that, like being negative about what you do have is just it's just kind of like disheartening for everyone. And I think of course it's easy to feel like that. And I totally, while that feeling is absolutely valid, of feeling like, you know, you're doing something wrong or you've lost viewers or something like that, I think it's just really, really important to think that like that's not just a number, that is literally a group of actual people with actual lives, and they might be like attending to those things, or maybe they're like having a day of theirs you know, a day for themselves where they're not on the internet, or maybe they're like visiting family, or maybe they're just maybe they're watching something else. I don't know, maybe they decided to watch a movie today, you know, and maybe 10 or 30 or 40 people like all have something else to do. And I think it's really, really important to remember that the people on the other side of that number are people, and to remember that they have their own lives and their own things that needed to do. And I think getting really caught up in like, oh, this person was around in my content, or like I've seen them a lot and I don't see them anymore, or like they've been gone for a while, or they're doing another thing, whatever, like not taking that personally, but instead like really supporting them as a person, and remembering that they are part of your community, and that means that you are there to support them just like they're there to support you. And so like if they are doing their own thing, like I'm always really proud and excited when people are off on their own journey, and if they have their own steps to make that isn't part of your journey, that's absolutely totally fine, you know. And I think that's just really important to remember. That's a really good point.
Yeah. And then the other thing you brought up that I really liked was the fact that you talked about changing up your content. And I think that's something that people don't always think about. I know I just actually at the start of my last stream, the stream here today before the podcast, one of the big things I brought up was last week wasn't bad, but I felt really kind of an energy about it where I wanted to do more, because I was just doing what was kind of the tried and true versus doing something new. And that's very important. What you brought up is evolving your content, adding new channel point rewards, new emotes, trying new games, trying new things is very important. Not just, like you said, not just for the people who watch you. In fact, the people who watch you won't realize that they're bored of something you do until you've done it to the point that they get bored. So it's important to kind of be a little bit innovative as a creator, but also for yourself, like you said. I think that's the big part is, as a creator, if you get into this kind of consistently kind of complacent place, it is more easier to find yourself in a position where you're just not enjoying what you're doing with streaming. Whereas being able to express yourself creatively, even if it's as small as a new emote, is like kind of a huge thing, I think, for people's mental health and the longevity of their stream.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're excited about your content, your viewers are going to be. And so I think, like you said, being a step ahead of like stagnation is really important, because, you know, if you at any point find yourself getting like your viewers are like right behind you. And part of that is just because, like, you know, you're the one keeping like the vibes check, like you're the vibe check as the streamer. And I think, like, if you're not excited, that's going to be incredibly obvious. And I think, yeah, keeping it exciting for yourself is like really, really important, not just for you to have fun. And like you should be enjoying your content. Like, you are literally there to like create a fun and exciting space, or whatever type of space you're trying to create. But, you know, either way, like, you should probably at least enjoy your content. If you expect someone else to enjoy your content, you should probably enjoy it. And so I think keeping it exciting for yourself is really important, for sure.
Definitely. And just kind of going along the same lines, not for fresh content, but for the community driven part of it, because we've been talking a lot about ride or dies and keeping content fresh for the viewers and for yourself. Something you had brought up earlier, and I want to circle back to that before moving on to anything else, is you talked a lot about the work that you put into Discord. And I always like to talk about the work that goes into streaming outside of streaming, because streaming, hitting the go live button, to me is the easiest part of this. I'm live, I'm presenting, I'm doing the game, I'm doing the content I have planned. But off of stream, I'm planning my new content. I'm trying to work on my Discord. I'm trying to make YouTube videos, whatever the case may be. So can you talk a little bit about why Discord was kind of like the most important secondary piece of content you're creating? Because Discord at the end of the day is still a form of content.
Yeah, sure. Like, it's very much community based. Like I said, when I said I started streaming, because part of it is like for me to make friends and like to have people to hang out with. And like, I've always had a really hard time making friends in real life and keeping friends in real life. And so, you know, this is a kind of a way to do that. So for me, the community aspect is incredibly important. And so the community hangout spot is like the Discord. And so that kind of quickly became a really important aspect of the streaming community for me, because it's just like, you know, when I'm not streaming, like there's like so much community time. And so yeah, I think it just kind of became a place that we can hang out off stream. And we've also been we started like playing Pathfinder, which is kind of like D&D. And so we play like Pathfinder games. We do like some community nights where we will like watch YouTube videos together, or we'll watch like other streams together, or we'll watch or we'll like play games and stuff like that. And so I think that's like, I think keeping keeping that like a cool place to hang out and a fun place for me to want to go to say like hi to all my friends off stream, you know, is like such a really important part. Plus it's just like fun. I've really enjoyed kind of decorating and putting up the throw pillows, so to speak, of Discord. So yeah, that's just a really, really cool place. It's such a like community based like social media, I guess. And instead of like so many other social medias are really based off of like personal profiles, but Discord is really based off of like a community, like forum based hangout spot. And I think that's really cool and really refreshing for me. And I really enjoy being in that kind of space. It's just really cozy because it's like, you know, everybody there, and you feel safe in that spot, and you have, you know, yeah, so that's definitely been really important. I think I answered the question. Now I'm like, what?
No, that is very important. I always bring up Discord because outside of Twitch, you hear a lot about making videos on YouTube or making videos on TikTok. You hear about making sure you get your Twitter followers and engagements up, getting your Insta followers engagement up. And each form of content you create differently, you grow differently. Some of them they all kind of grow a little bit around you as you grow on your primary platform. But I think a lot of people overlook Discord because Discord is not a platform that is going to get a lot of new viewers, if any new viewers, for your content. But it is exactly what you described. And I think everybody has a Discord, but don't realize, because I'm just now putting a lot more effort into getting my own Discord where people are utilizing it in a community way, doing more community driven stuff, because it is a platform, whether you use Guilded or Discord, where you can really build up a community. And while it might not get new people, it makes people attached to the community. It makes them stick around, want to be around, gives them a place to come back to, or to check in if they're no longer, maybe they don't have the hours to watch you anymore, but they can still be part of the community. I think it's really important. And everybody has a Discord, but I don't feel everybody realizes just how important that can be for maintaining your community, especially in those off-stream hours.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's interesting hearing you even phrase it that way. When you're saying like about Twitter and Instagram and all these other things about growing and stuff, like I don't have an Instagram, and I don't even I haven't started. I have a YouTube, but it's basically just like a neglected VOD dump at this point. And I really need to like start making that content. I think I haven't even like looked at TikTok. Oh my gosh. But these things kind of overwhelm me. I will get there probably eventually, but I guess I don't really think of it in terms of like reaching new viewers. I guess it's like, yeah, I guess for me it is so much about the community of like what the community is already, and just maintaining that. And but yeah, I don't know. Those are good things to think about, I guess, for sure.
They are. It's important to know which medium does what and what you want to use it for, so you're not producing the same content across. And no one's gonna. I guess some people do them all, but it's hard to do them all. So it's kind of good to like build Discord and then maybe look at building something else, because like TikTok and YouTube can help a lot with discoverability. You can also make content there that's a bit different than what you can make on Twitch. Whereas Twitter, Instagram give you a lot people behind the scenes, and Discord gives people a direct connection. They're all, I think, good sources. So we've talked a lot about community, about streaming, things like that. We talked about a little bit about metal music. Before we get to our rapid fire questions, we really should talk about the content you stream, which is primarily you're looking at getting into art cannabis, but primarily been games. You put 330 hours into Skyrim, 176 into Elder Scrolls Online, and then 120 into Horizon Zero Dawn, and a smattering of other games that you've kind of played through. So it's safe to say that Elder Scrolls content is kind of the primary content you've mostly produced over this year as you've been streaming. I'm curious what drew you to Elder Scrolls, what made kind of Skyrim the game that you kind of fall back on, the game that you like is your like core game, at least for now.
Yeah, I mean, I started with Skyrim because Skyrim was a game that I had played before, and I was so nervous about streaming and about all the other stuff that came with streaming that like Skyrim was like comfort food for me. You know, that was like a cozy place that I was familiar with, that I I love that world. And this is actually a screenshot from well, spoiler alert, Sovngarde. This is a big old Alduin right here. But anyways, yeah, I wanted to start there because it's a game I knew and loved. And I was so busy for a lot of my life, just working and doing art and stuff like that, that I never really had a lot of time to game. And so, but I did play Skyrim like the year it came out. It was I got that game and I absolutely loved it. And so I wanted to start there because I knew it and I knew I was comfortable with that. And like of all of the new unknowns with streaming, that was one of the things that I was familiar with. And so I wanted to start there. And then that's just, I honestly was blown away by how many other people are still stoked about that game, which is really cool. I had no idea there was such a huge community. I had recently just discovered that modding was even a thing, like before I started streaming. And I realized that there was a whole huge modding community, and, you know, talk about keeping content fresh, like holy guacamole, you know. There's such a huge community for Skyrim and modding and stuff like that. And so I didn't really realize that was such a huge like community on, you know, Twitch or anywhere else. And so so that was a huge, really pleasant surprise that it was just such a beloved game. Yeah, so I just kind of stuck with that, and then I started branching out to Elder Scrolls Online because that just kind of made sense. And that, again, that was another game I had played previously, not a lot, but a little bit. And so that was just another game that was familiar and comfortable to me. And I just love those worlds. I love like fantasy. I love anything with like dragons. In fact, I'm starting Dragon Age tomorrow. But yeah, I'm really excited. I love that world. It's so like I feel like I belong there, you know? So yeah, I think that was just like really easy pick for me. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, it's gonna be Skyrim. There's no even option. So
well, Dragon Age is such a fantastic franchise. I'm excited to watch you stream that. It was really exciting when you were playing through Horizon Zero Dawn. Again, I bring those up because you've done other games as well. But a lot of your content, if it isn't Elder Scrolls related, is related to these big kind of open worlds like you get in Dragon Age, you get in Horizon, and even BioShock not being a full open world still kind of has that same open world feel to it.
Sure.
I think what's really cool about the Elder Scrolls modding community, like you said, 10 years later, there is still a big community of people who watch people play Skyrim modded in some way or play it core value. There's still actually a solid viewership for it. Obviously, Elder Scrolls Online 7 years in, that's the directory I grew up in, is another one that has a really strong community to it. I'm very curious because as somebody who's been in kind of, you have your own community, but when you're in games, you're attracting people from different communities. I'm curious how your experiences have been in the Elder Scrolls Online and the modded kind of Skyrim communities, because I've found of all the games I've played, they have a more unique community in that the vast majority of it's a little more supportive, a little less apprehensive to just jump in and get involved with other streamers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my experience with all of the Elder Scrolls communities has been incredibly positive. Like all of the other content creators that primarily create Elder Scrolls content or like play, you know, Skyrim or Elder Scrolls Online on Twitch have been so welcoming and so kind, and it's just like it just makes me want to stay in that world. And I think that's just I think there's a certain types of folks that are attracted to that world and want to live in that world, and I think like we all kind of like vibe on that level. So I think I've just been absolutely blown away by how kind and welcoming the entire communities have been. And yeah, I think it's just like we're all brought together by this love for this world and this content. And yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think to answer the question.
It does answer the question. It's very well said.
I forget the question in the
no, it's fine. The answer is something I always say is that it's all about the journey, not the destination. So if the question sparks off a thought, that sparks off a thought, that sparks off a third thought, don't worry about it. We're here to actually have a conversation. So, but yeah, the community just loves to see other people be a part of it. So that's why you can see bigger creators like Ninja614 and the Elder Scrolls Online community pop into your stream and give advice, just because they're the sort of person who doesn't view this other person in the directory as competition, because we are such kind of a close-knit community.
For sure. I love that. I think that is such a huge like thing for me. And that's how I feel about it. And it's so cool to see other creators that think of it like purely like we're all part of a bigger community, you know? And even though we're creators, like we are all creating content as a big community together. And I think that is such an amazing way of looking at it. And like, that's totally how I feel about it. So it's really cool to see content creators like that, who just, you know, embody that. It's amazing for sure.
Yeah. It creates this big shared community, because anytime somebody comes into my stream or I go into someone else's stream, I see a name that I recognize from this other stream, and it's kind of a really cool thing.
I love that. I love that. I love seeing friends in the wild when I'm just like, oh, cool, you're here too. I love it. It's so awesome.
So kind of looping back to the start, we talked about a number of things like this in terms of like spicing up content and things like that. But some things I really want to bring up is, as somebody who, if you combined your hours in Elder Scrolls Skyrim and Elder Scrolls Online, which are tangentially related, that makes up the bulk of the highest percentage of the content you've made. How do you deal? Is it easy for you just to switch to another game to avoid getting pigeonholed, or do you sometimes feel the pressure to be like pigeonholed into a creator who only can create open world RPG content or only create Elder Scrolls content?
I've never really thought about it like that, but for me, it's actually I'm really looking forward to trying new games for myself. And again, this is like, maybe it's a little selfish, but like I'm really excited about keeping the content fresh for myself. And I think there's so many games that I just haven't played. Like I haven't had the time to play. Like that was my first playthrough of BioShock, all 3 of them. And you know, they're old games, but like, and I knew about them. My sister loved them when they first were a thing, and I've always wanted to play. And now I'm like, I finally have the opportunity to play this game, and I get really excited about it. And so I think for me, I'm just like, Horizon Zero Dawn was another one that like a couple years ago, like I saw somebody playing and was just like, this game looks so cool, what the heck? And so that's been on my radar. There's so many games like that, and I think I'm just stoked to like play other games. And so I think that's part of the reason I started branching out to variety, is not necessarily like to not be pigeonholed, but just to keep it like something that I'm excited about. And of course I'll always be excited to play Skyrim, but like there's so many other games out there. And like, you know, when you have people coming in your chat being like, have you played this? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like I've never even heard of that game. Somebody tells me about a new game like daily that I've never heard of. And that's amazing. I love that, you know, and I think that's just, I'm just super excited to try new things. I love learning new stuff. I love learning new games. I love like exploring new worlds. That's always really fun for me. So I'm just honestly really excited to like see all the games that I've missed my whole life, you know, and just try a bunch of new games. So yeah, I am gonna keep like a variety on rotation for that reason.
Awesome.
So, yeah,
it's really good that you don't feel pigeonholed, because it can be something with content creation very easy to get to the point where you're like, this is the content I feel comfortable making. So again, kind of like with artistic endeavors, branching out is really important. One more thing I want to kind of bring up in terms of just kind of mental health, and we talked about burnout and avoiding that by kind of creating new stuff. We've talked about getting pigeonholed. The other thing that I talk to a lot of content creators about, not just on the podcast, but you know, while I'm streaming off stream, is imposter syndrome. I think it's something a vast majority of us suffer from, is because we are talent, we are directors, we are producers, we are marketing, the list goes on and on of the things we have to do. We start having this imposter syndrome that when we have success or new success, when's the other shoe going to drop? We don't feel like we necessarily belong there. So I'm curious if you've struggled with imposter syndrome at all, and how you've kind of dealt with that, if you have.
Yeah, that's a huge thing for me. And that's something that yeah, that's a big one. That is really tough. And I think I've always kind of struggled with that, even when I wasn't creating content like this, you know, doing like streaming content and stuff, but even like creating artwork and stuff like that, it's like, oh, there's so many other artists, like I'm just whatever, it's just me. I'm just like, I'm doing my best, but like it's not that good. It's like I look at other people's art and I'm like, that's freaking amazing. Like maybe someday I'll make that. It inspires you, but it also like kind of deters you a little bit, because you're just like, you know, so yeah, I definitely struggle with that, and that is definitely something that I'm like, why me? Why is it really that good? Like, did I trick everyone into being here? Like, am I actually making content that's exciting or good? Like, it's just so, I think that's part of the thing that keeps, it kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about earlier about the like, oh no, I dropped viewers. But it's kind of like, it's weird. It's like this double-edged sword of like, you'd feel like you dropped viewers, but then you also feel like, why is anyone here? You know? So it's just like, yeah, that's definitely a struggle. And I think for me, again, it's just about grounding myself and reminding myself that, you know, the fact that I am able to even create content at all and have anyone here is just amazing. But yeah, any amount of success, I find myself feeling like guilty about it in a weird way, where I feel like I don't deserve it, or like it's a trick, or like everyone, like every day you hit this start stream button, I always think like maybe today's nobody will show up, you know? And that's a real fear of that, which it's silly kind of. It's like, it's kind of like, not, Yeah,
No,
totally,
every day
yes.
I'm like, well, today's the day I stream to one person because
Yes.
I know my one friend is always here.
Yeah, the one person, but then everyone else is just like, oh, I finally realized that she's a fake, and like, you know, it's kind of, it's like totally irrational, but it's like so real in your head, you know, it's such a real feeling of that, like, you know, yeah. So I'm glad that you understand. I think a lot of creators feel that way for sure, and I've seen that being a big theme in you know, in off stream content like Twitch or Twitter, sorry, and stuff like that, where I think that is something that a lot of creators struggle with. And as far as dealing with it, yeah, I think it's just kind of the same as any of that other, you know, any of that other like grounding stuff, where you just kind of have to like ground yourself and remind yourself like, okay, I am here. They are here because they want to be. I kind of like hype myself up in the mirror. Like I have to like mentally prepare before I go live, you know? And and I have to like get in the right headspace, I think. And so it's not just like, you know, putting on my lights and starting my camera and putting on my makeup and putting on a shirt or whatever, you know, like it's not just that. It's also like I have to get in the right headspace. And I think like part of that is me reminding myself. It's kind of like a mantra or whatever that I remind myself, and I go through like this like my internal ritual of just reminding myself that like, you are creating good content. Everyone is there because they want to be. Like, we're gonna chill. It's fine. Like everyone is having a good time, or they wouldn't be there. They would leave, you know. And if you know, and I think that is a really like irrational but very real fear. And I think yeah, I think that's a tough one. That's a really tough one, honestly. That's really hard.
It's a thing people don't talk about as much as I feel like it gets mentioned, but nobody like puts the name to it, which is imposter syndrome. Because I do see it a lot. I see creators who are working really hard, who are growing, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. Sometimes you start day one and Gus Johnson blasts in, like happened with you. Sometimes you build up over a year, like I did. Sometimes it can take years. Like, yeah, everybody's journey is different, but it's no matter how your journey went, we all suffer with it. And that's why I like to bring kind of awareness to it, because I think the perspective is from everybody else who has imposter syndrome, that they're the one who feels like imposter, and all these other streamers they look at don't. But the truth is, almost every other streamer you look at, except for maybe a small percentage, all actually have that same fear, have the same kind of reactions. And we're all kind of human here, trying to do our best in a space that has us doing. Again, if this, people brought it before, if this was a TV production, you would have producers and you would have line director, you'd have all this things. And instead, our staff is us and some friends and community members who agree to mod for us and help, and maybe our friends and family. We have very smaller crews. The other thing you brought up, I think is important, is we all have our pre-stream and our post-stream rituals, I believe, and I think those are very important. I wake up, I eat my food, I eat specific foods, I listen to specific music. I have a whole routine I go through, and after stream I do the kind of the same thing as well. And I think that's for people who don't do that, I envy you. But for me, it's if I didn't listen to, you know, a certain 3 songs, if I didn't like drink my coffee on the porch for 10 minutes just like looking at a tree, if I didn't do certain things, I feel off for the first 30 minutes of my stream every time.
Yeah, honestly, maybe I should start doing that. Like having more of a, like, I have like kind of a ritual, but maybe I think yeah, for me sometimes I feel like really like bamboozled. I don't know, I feel like really off in my head and I don't really know why. And maybe that's actually really, maybe I learned something just now.
Yeah, not saying it works for everybody, but for me, it helps me to create all these, because it creates a sense memory after a time. You're like, oh yes, this, and it gets me all like focused.
Yeah, no, that's really smart. And actually that's a really great coping mechanism. And I'm really glad that you found something that works for you, because like, and that can take years to find something that works for you for sure. There's still things that I have in trial and error that are like coping mechanisms that work. Some things that I found that work. For me, the hardest thing is time. I'm so bad at being on time. And I'm really bad at like, and part of the reason is because it's hard for me to have, I haven't like really solidified my pre-stream ritual enough. Always good to definitely think about that for sure.
Yeah, time used to be my big thing. Now I mostly, every once in a while I have to throw out a message saying I'm starting an hour late, but for the most part it took me a long time, but that was my big summer goal. That was streamer summer goal was like, let's get solidified on a start time. We might change the start time later, but let's just get used to at least being, we might not stream as many hours every time, but let's try to always be live at the same time. That was just a goal I personally had, that because I just wanted to kind of get used to that and be able to build my week and my days around, this is when I start.
That's great. And that's really big. And honestly, congratulations. Like, that's awesome. That is a huge step that you've decided on a goal, and that you have like put energy towards that, and that it's like paying off, and that you're feeling like positively empowered because of that. That's absolutely amazing. Like, that is like, that's top tier. Like, that's the stuff right there. That's awesome.
Yeah. And part of that is also comes from imposter syndrome and me finding ways to combat it, because no matter how many hours I put in, no matter how much money I make at it, kept not viewing content creation as a job. And it's still not a full-time job. I'm not a full-time content creator, but I needed to do something to switch my brain to a mode that goes, no, this is something you're trying to build a career in. I would like to be a full-time content creator. And if I'm going to do that, I need to give it the same respect I give to my consulting business. If I tell a client I'm going to talk to them at a certain time, we talk at a certain time. I do meetings at certain times. So for me, to get over imposter syndrome, I had to start treating this with the respect it needs to have if I'm going to eventually try to transition this into a full-time thing.
Really great point. And that is definitely, I think that is definitely really a way for yourself that you found to make it more, to find a way to make yourself feel more empowered. And like you said, that is a really, really great way to combat imposter syndrome, because it's like part of imposter syndrome makes you feel like I don't deserve this. And so like, what is it, if you get down to the root of like why you feel like you don't deserve it, or why you feel like it's not right or something, then and if for you that is, not respecting it like you would like a job or something, then I think that's a great point. That's awesome.
Yeah, and just remember, everybody who's listening to this or watching this, what I'm talking about is not an answer for everyone. What I'm saying, what I'm throwing out there is just an example of, we all do have to find our own answers, what works for us as far as getting past these things as individuals, but it's going to be a very individual experience, but it's worth thinking about, what can I do to start overcoming the imposter syndrome? Because imposter syndrome can, if you leave it unchecked too long, start to allow you to self-sabotage yourself in a lot of ways. Because if you keep expecting people not to be there, you keep expecting that, then you'll put the work into your stream, but you might not put it on the same level, because you're kind of protecting yourself by not putting yourself out there, by convincing yourself you're not worth it.
Absolutely. That can be incredibly toxic, for sure. Yeah. I think that's a really good point that you made about finding your own way. And I think part of that is the reason why everyone's journey is just so different and so individual. And because you can't just like, you can watch videos that are like, do these 5 things and you'll become a successful streamer. Like, it's helpful, and you can, again, you are what you eat with media and stuff like that. But and it's like, you can learn from that stuff, but ultimately there's things that work for you specifically. And to find those things, again, for me, same as you, it's about the journey, not the destination. And so I think, and having goals as destinations is important, but that's part of the steps along the way, not necessarily like the end game. And so I think like the journey is so important, especially with content creation, is that like, it's like the ink is always wet, you know what I mean? Like, you're always changing things around and always learning from things and growing on that. And I think that experience, that process is so unique for everyone. And I think that's what makes everyone special as a creator, but also it can make it really difficult to know how and what to do next. And I think that's why for me, like meditation and yoga and like my witchcraft and stuff like that is like really helpful for me to like learn from myself and learn from what I am experiencing, to be able to like grow and learn and move forward. And it's great to hear your journey and what has worked for you, and what and you can learn from that. But again, it's like, it's really about finding your own path, for sure.
100% about finding your own path, for sure. But I have always found it helpful to hear what other people did, because even if they're not things that work for me, They are
Sure.
things I can pass on to somebody else, or at least try or mentally explore.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's kind of a few more things, just kind of moving on before we get to our rapid fire and things like that. Is what does the future, like we talked about goals, obviously your goals is bring art streams in, but what does the future hold for you, whether it's near the end of the year, whether it's next week? What kind of is the future for the Melzii channel?
I kind of know and I kind of don't. Like I have, again, I have goals, and I have like, there's content that I want to make, there's games I want to play, there's art I want to make, there's I have a lot of like community projects in mind. I did my first fundraising stream last month, and that was so awesome and really, really, really rewarding for me, and I want to do a lot more of that. It's really really rewarding for me to feel like I'm making a difference, and like, you know, I might be in small ways where it's like when people tell me, you know, like, oh, I was having a bad day and now I feel better, because, you know, like that is like some of the best compliment you can ever get, by the way. But so you're making a difference in a small way just by creating content, but like if I'm able to like actually, you know, make a difference in ways that are really important to me and I care about, and actually help real people, that and by doing what I am gonna do anyway, that is so awesome, and that's like something I really want to do more of. Let's see, gosh, so many things, and like there's so many things that I feel like I haven't even thought of yet. Like I still feel like a baby streamer. Like I've been streaming for like 7 or 8 months or something, and it's just like I feel like there's so many things that I don't even know, that I haven't even thought about yet, you know. And that's actually, I think, just staying open-minded to new things is really important for me, to think that I can grow in ways that I haven't even thought of yet, which is so amazing. But yeah, I think just continuing to hang out with my community, and keep and other communities as well, and just kind of just keep doing what I'm doing, and think of new things to do, and start, you know, creating art content, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think a lot about the future, but a lot of it's the similar to you. Is like there's a lot of things I don't know. I don't know what I don't know, what I'll eventually want to do, but I want to make sure I'm open to it. At the end of the day, sometimes ambition is considered a bad word, but I'm ultimately an ambitious person, and part of being ambitious is being open to new opportunities and new things, and being able to seize on those and just try new things. And I think that's a really great approach to have. Is like, I don't know what it is I'm fully going to be doing, but I do know that I'm going to keep exploring things that are exciting to me and producing exciting content around them.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And then one quick question before our rapid fires, which is, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who would ask you for streaming advice? Something, either if it meant going back in time and giving it to yourself before you started streaming, or somebody asked now, just kind of one piece of advice that maybe people don't hear, because we all hear kind of like, turn the number off, your viewer number off when you stream. We all hear like there's things we all hear, but what's the piece of advice like from Melzii to people?
I think usually what I tell people is just, again, like creating content that you enjoy, because it's so important that you are enjoying what you're creating. I think that's incredibly apparent to your viewers. And I think mostly just create content you enjoy, create content that you want to create. Like if you're excited about your content, your viewers are going to be. It's just like, from my experience, that is absolutely how that works. And then also I think being open-minded to new things, and also the other thing I just totally forgot, but I'll think of it. Let's see. I think wow, I hate it when my brain does this. Okay, wait, hold on, it'll come back.
Oh, it's about every 7 minutes for me, so I understand.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's the worst. Yeah, let's see. Advice to new streamers, that's right. Advice to new streamers. Yeah, I think part of turning off the number, that whole thing, is just speaks to like not being too focused on these, like, you know, you have to have this many, or the numbers part of it is, it's there and it's helpful and it's good to look at and stuff. It helps to give you the reason they call it insights is because it gives you insights as to how your viewers are viewing your content, but it isn't like an end all be all kind of thing. Like, it's so important to remember that that number is actually made up of people. That's, I think, really, really important to remember. And that you are really interacting with like actual humans on the other end, and you are, you know, you're influencing them. Actually, that's another really important thing, is that like you are literally an influencer, and like you lead by example, and you are an influencing presence in these people's lives. And I think that's an incredibly important responsibility. And I think it's really, really important to take that seriously. Because things that you say and the way that you treat others is really, really important to consider, because you know, you are leading by example. And if, you know, it's like classic treat other people how you want to be treated, but also treat other people how you want to see other people treat other people. You know, as a creator and an influencer, like, you are literally influencing how people interact, and I think it's a really huge responsibility. But so, you know, think about that, and I think just, yeah, just, you know, be yourself. Like, it sounds silly, but it's just so, like, you know, it's so important. It sounds silly maybe because it's cliche, but it's only cliche because it's like such great advice. And also just finding your own way, you know, like finding your own journey. Wherever you're at on your journey is okay and acceptable and valid, and it's you know, it's just part of your path. Like, if you're in a good place and a bad place, anywhere in between on that spectrum, wherever you are right now is totally okay, and you can just learn and grow and continue. You know, it's just, you know, it's about, you know, just creating your own path.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
Something important to mention there when it comes to analytics is I have an analytical background. I used to work on the other side of things when it comes to things like this. I used to do reputation management, brand development, and things like that. So when you have a bad day and your numbers are low because you tried something new, or when you look at your numbers after the fact and, you know, there's like a decrease or a plateau, what people I want to throw out there with numbers, like Melzii said, it's your own journey. It's important that you're creating content you care about. Everybody's going to be at different places on it. From an analytical standpoint, I wouldn't be able to do analysis based on 3 streams. We're talking, usually you look at something over the course of 3, even 4 months, which means if I had looked at my analytics, for example, when I first started doing podcast content with my first podcast, Tavern Talks, and I looked at those numbers the first 2 times and worried about the numbers, I would have never kept doing podcast content. Now it's to the point that when I produce podcasts, they generally, analytically, the numbers are similar to any other content I produce because I put in the months and watched and put in the work towards it. So just to kind of build off, it's where you're at on your journey. Don't let one speed bump, let one drop in numbers or anything like that, let those insights influence you to go away from something you're passionate about. Because if you're passionate about it and you keep putting in the work, you don't actually know what those impacts are for up to 3 to 4 months. So I just wanted to kind of add that on, is like, don't shy away from something you're passionate about just because that one stream a week is lower numbers than the other ones. Because if you don't give it time, it will never be able to like rise up, and people will see your passion and it will grow based on that.
Really, really good point. You know, you build it, they will come, but like, you have to build it first, you know, and that's an incredibly good point. And I think like switching categories, or like switching to, like, for you, switching from like gaming or to podcasts, that's like a whole different thing. It's not even just a different game. It's like a totally different type of content. And I think like it's almost like you're starting from nothing, like numbers analytical wise, and so it's kind of like your very first stream in a lot of ways. And I think like you're thinking of it as stream number like 742 or whatever, but it's kind of like, in a way, you're creating a whole different type of content. So it's like, you know, it's hard to not think of it as like in the same trajectory, but it's kind of not. It's kind of its own thing. And so definitely, especially if you're switching to a different type of content, like, just, keep building it and keep, being excited about it and doing things that you enjoy, and like they will come if, yeah, for sure. That's really, really good point.
That's also why I advise people, just another piece of advice to put out there, not to follow trends unless they're trends you're passionate about. Like right now, Final Fantasy 14 is popping off. If you love Final Fantasy 14, you got to expose to it. That's what you want to stream because you're in love with it. Awesome. Do that. Know that's going to take a while to grow till the bigger creators kind of move on to the next thing. But if you're not passionate about it and you're just jumping into that category because it's the new hotness, you'll never be able to put down roots. And we talked about this podcast multiple times about your ride or dies, your community that comes with you through everything. You can't build that community if you're constantly hopping through categories, chasing whatever's going to be the next hot thing. So that goes back to, again, just I'm building off what Melzii said. Make content you're excited about. If you're excited about the new hot thing, by all means jump in with both feet, but don't jump into something you don't care about because you're like, oh, this is the game that has a lot of traction right now, because people will be able to read on your face and your play that it's not a game you want to be playing.
Definitely. And like, especially with those ride or dies and stuff, and finding new ride or dies and things, like people who they're there for you. The reason that they're there, the reason that they're your ride or dies is because they enjoy you making content that you enjoy. So again, playing a game that's popular just because it's popular or something isn't always the right choice, and isn't exactly gonna like even reflect in your analytics or anything, necessarily, because again, those people are there because they want to watch you enjoy what you're doing. And if you're doing something that you're not enjoying, like that's going to be incredibly transparent. And that is definitely really, really great advice for sure.
All right, now we're going to do some rapid fires real quick. So just first answer that comes to your mind or a quick explanation. For those of you people who haven't been there, there is a meme, or maybe it is just a way of life on Melzii's channel. So what is Melzii brand spicy milk?
Okay, so I said something wrong. A lot of our jokes have come from me either mispronouncing things or like stumbling over my words or saying things wrong. So that came from somebody asked me about the devil's lettuce. And I think it was my first stream, and I was like so nervous. I was like misreading everything, and I didn't know what the hell like they were talking about. But they said it in Spanish, and for some reason my brain, I know enough Spanish that like I should know, like I know. But they said and I was just like, oh, does that mean spicy milk? They were like, what? And so it just kind of became this whole thing. And then, it just kind of became literally this whole thing where one of our friends made like a commercial. One of our friends made like a whole screen. We have like a huge meme about it. And it just kind of, then we have a whole mascot named Leche Picante who like he's like a spicy skeleton who's on fire. And someone created a mod to put in our game in Skyrim so that Leche Picante, the spicy skeleton, can follow me around in Skyrim. It like literally just took off. Like we love memes for sure, and that's like one of the original Melzii memes.
For our audio listeners, lots of bouncing emotes with spicy milk, and shout out to my adventuring skeleton boy at Leche. I always worry about him when he falls behind in your Skyrim adventures. I forget him, and like he kills me, and he kills all the guards, and it's a whole thing. Memes and inside jokes, though, those are the key, I think, to any healthy channel. So
totally, that's what brings the community together. Like it's like something that we all, and that's why actually we created in Discord, we created a Melziipedia lore library so that nobody feels left out, so that the inside jokes are available to everyone. And it's like because I want that to be really inclusive, because it is like it is something that it's like, well, if you get it, but like I want you to get it, you know what I mean? So yeah, for sure.
All right. So following on with our rapid fires, important channel, important podcast food questions. Is a Pop-Tart a ravioli?
Yes. Sure.
Yes. Okay. You can go with yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The debate is always, does the crimped edges make it a ravioli, or does it actually have to be a pasta? But we're going to go with yes. All right. We'll check one more into the yes column.
You be what you want to be.
All right. Should pineapple go on pizza?
If you want it there, absolutely.
Does pineapple go on your pizza?
No.
If you bake two separate lasagnas fully baked, and you take those finished lasagnas and put one on top of the other, do you have one or two lasagnas?
One lasagna, community lasagna.
Thank you again, Melzii. If you want to go ahead and shout out your channel and anything you have coming up here in the near future real quick.
My channel is just twitch.tv/Melzii. There we go. It is Melzii. Starting the whole, I'm going to play the whole Dragon Age series front to back. And then, yeah, probably starting some art streams. And then we're probably going to do a lot of like spooky season stuff. I love Halloween. I love spooky season. I love fall. My favorite time of year. So we're going to be doing some really fun stuff like that. Probably some more bingo. Who knows? All kinds of fun stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, Octavian. It has been absolutely amazing. I'm truly honored to be here. I really, really, really appreciate that you had me on your podcast. This has been absolutely awesome.
Be sure to check out, drop a follow for Melzii. Thank you again for being on the podcast. Hopefully sometime in the future when we have one of our group podcasts, we can have you back.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.